I have such a lucky life that I don't even know where to start. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid, And then, well, if you tell your children that, then why should it be different with us?
Good evening, and thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Tess. Think About It Thursday. Yes, the news is out. Carolyn Bryant Donham has passed away, but more importantly, Jerry Springer passed away. If you want my thoughts regarding the passing of the woman who caused this scene behind me, check the links in the description of this video, and I'll leave it at that. I will leave it at that. There is a lot, so much going on, of course. Let's jump into this. There is a woman that is a danger to every other woman in the United States today. Actually, anyone who can give birth, anyone who desires and requires bodily autonomy. Pay close attention.
This woman is the reason that we're all losing our reproductive rights. So I need you to remember her name and her face. Meet Erin Hawley. She not only had a role in overturning Roe v. Wade, but now she's part of the legal council that's trying to end our access to mifepristone. This anti-choice zealot works for Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a dark money organization and has been labeled an anti-LGBT hate group. So do not think that she will not come for gay marriage next. Erin is the wife of U.S. Senator Josh Hawley. She was co-counsel on the Dobbs case in Mississippi, which eventually overturned Roe v. Wade in the Supreme Court. She coordinated the amicus briefs for the Dobbs case, even though her name does not appear on any of the briefs, and the ADF will not publicize exactly what her involvement was. And now she's part of the legal counsel that filed the lawsuit against the FDA to end access to mifepristone. And it doesn't stop there. She works for another dark money foundation, the Independent Women's Forum. The IWF is a pay-to-play group which has a history of being anti-women and was actively involved in Trump's conservative nominations to the Supreme Court. Hawley herself has claimed that the abortion pill is a danger to women's lives. And she went as far as to say during a congressional hearing that abortion is not the treatment for ectopic pregnancies. Next post, I'm going to go deeper into these dark money groups.
As always, I will keep you abreast on all of these organizations that are working overtime to just take rights away. But keep in mind, this is why they keep screaming, George Soros, George Soros, look over here, the spooky. They're doing what they're telling you to look for being done other places. Now, before we move on, we do have an update regarding the whole document leak case. The prosecution is requesting that the suspect not be released. He appears to be a security threat. Previous to his arrest, he had smashed his devices. That doesn't change anything, honey. And it appears from his online activity, he wanted to carry out a mass shooting. He was heavily armed, and if released, it is looking like there's a high probability that he would be aided and abetted by a foreign power. For additional information, once again, check the links in the bio, links in the description of this video. Now, we all know the Jean Carroll case is going on, and it is not looking good for Trump. Actually, none of these cases are looking good for Trump. The trial will resume on Monday. Today was the deadline for attorneys to say if Trump would testify or not. And Carroll stated that Trump's current social media antics, etc., are part of a large reason as to why she is suing. But let's take a look at this detailed recap.
Well, folks, the Jean Carroll assault trial against Donald Trump's been going on for about 2 days now, and it's not going well at all for Donald Trump. Yesterday, the second day of the trial, Jean Carroll went ahead and testified, questioned by her lawyers. And she basically said, I'm here because Donald Trump raped me. Now, before she even had the chance to testify, Donald Trump, who is not present at the trial, got on Truth Social, lost his mind, and wrote this about Carroll. The E. Jean Carroll case, Miss Bergdorf Goodman, is a made-up scam. Her lawyer is a political operative financed by a big political donor that they said didn't exist, only to get caught lying about it. That's not true. Just look at her CNN interview before and after the commercial break, like a different person. She said there was a dress using the old Monica Lewinsky stuff, then she didn't want to produce it. The dress would be allowed to be part of this case. This is a fraudulent and false story. Witch hunt. Okay, none of that is true or accurate. But he continued. They got caught lying. The Miss Bergdorf Goodman case is financed by a big political donor that they tried to hide. Does anybody believe that I would take then almost 60-year-old woman that I didn't know from the front door of a very crowded department store, with me being very well known, to put it mildly, into a tiny dressing room and blank her? She didn't scream. There were no witnesses. Nobody saw this. She never made a police complaint. If I was seen there with a woman, big press, scam. Now, here's the problem, Donald. You made the decision to not show up at this trial where you could have said all that on the stand. Like, there's literally no reason why you couldn't have gone into that courtroom, taken to the witness stand, and said all of this. Like, there'd have been no problem had you done that. That would be your testimony. Like, nobody saw this. Nobody was there. There were no witnesses. Nobody screamed. No police report. Come on, folks. That's what you could have said. But instead you did it on Truth Social, which, as the judge then had to point out to your lawyer, you're breaking the rules. And that's going to end very badly for you. Let me read you this exchange posted on Twitter. This was between the judge and Trump's lawyers. Judge Kaplan to Joe Tacopina said, quote, "Your client is speaking to his public about things he's not supposed to speak about." So Tacopina then responded, Ms. Kaplan's office leaked that 2 mock juries found liability. I'm not saying Ms. Kaplan did it. Someone from that wall did it. So the judge responds, could have been someone off the street who was paid to give an opinion. Tacopina said, I've read the article. Judge says, I have too. There were 37 people. Tacopina says, I will speak to my client about the post today, I assure you, but they have done it too. There was a protective order that was not signed or executed. I will ask my client not to comment on the case. Judge Kaplan responded, your client may be tampering with a new source of potential liability, and I think you know what I mean. Tacopina says, contempt of court. Kaplan says, anything else? And then Carroll's lawyer said, nope, we're good, Your Honor. And they said it according to the people that were there with a big smile on their face, and they seemed very happy. As they should, because Donald Trump's mouth is his biggest liability. And if he had been ordered by the judge, as the judge says, to shut the hell up, then I think we should already be looking at contempt of court. I don't think it should be warned. It's not like he made one little oopsie. He made at least 2 posts about this. So it shows he doesn't care. Like, we shouldn't be flirting with hitting him with contempt charges. You should just hit him with contempt charges. I mean, the SOB didn't even want to show up to court, but he wants to run his mouth about the case. The time to run your mouth about the case is when you're sitting on that witness stand. Any other time, you need to shut the hell up. Joe Tacopina knows this. He's trying to deflect and be like, well, they may have done it too. There was a story and it literally could have come from anybody. And I don't even think it came from them, but maybe somebody, like, you're a bad lawyer. You are a really not good lawyer. At least in this particular case. Your credentials are actually good, but based on what we've seen from this, you're not good at your job, and your client is making sure that you can't be good at your job.
Trump didn't learn from his past indictment and the warnings since then from yet another judge. But coming from the WashingtonPost.com, Trump accuser E. Jean Carroll testifies, he raped me whether I screamed or not. And she did. Jean Carroll, the writer who has accused Donald Trump of raping her in the mid-1990s, ended her second day of emotional testimony, facing a flurry of pointed questions about her credibility and actions from Trump's lawyer. The lawyer, Joe Tacopino, whom the judge has reprimanded for being repetitive and argumentative, great tactic in a rape case, asked Carroll why she did not scream during the assault or later report it to the police. You can't beat up on me for not screaming, she said. He raped me whether I screamed or not. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and called Carroll a liar, which spurred Carroll to sue for defamation, leading to the civil trial. Now, here's a cliff notes from the trial as to what we know now. Carroll has testified Thursday that she came forward in 2019 with her accusations against Trump because she was emboldened by similar steps taken by women who started coming forward late in 2017 with accusations against Harry Weinstein, the now disgraced film producer. It caused me to realize that staying silent does not work, she said. Tacopina is trying to undermine Carroll's credibility as he questions her Thursday. During his opening statement earlier this week, Tacopina called Carroll's story unbelievable and highlighted what he called the lack of evidence in her account, such as her not knowing the date when the alleged attack took place. Carroll sued Trump last year for battery and defamation. She is asking for unspecified damages and a court order directing Trump to retract a statement on social media calling her a liar. And Trump is speaking like a true rapist, a true repeat offender of sexual harassment. And keep in mind, once Carroll is done testifying, there are other women who will take to the stand to talk about being groped on an airplane and all sorts of other things. There are also former employees of the store that will corroborate her story. And this, oh, she's not attractive. First of all, she wasn't 60 years old in the mid-1990s. And previously, he mistook a picture of her for his former wife, Marla Maples, while saying, she's not my type. Rapists don't have, the type for rapist is someone they can dominate. It's about power. It's about who is the easiest and most likely target. It's not about aesthetics. And it's a very, very, very bad move to have put Tacopino, who thinks that he's cosplaying a mobster attorney, and extremely misogynistic and egotistical on the case. But I guess he went from representing Stormy Daniels to now being hashtag Team Trump. But I guess I digress, y'all. Now, as promised, one story we did not get a chance to get into last night is what I have dubbed, Catch Me If You Can, the Rossi edition. Now, this man has a long history of sexual assault and decided he was going to try to fake his own death and run off to Scotland. Now, his choice of names, you know what? There's no way to preface this. Y'all, get comfortable. I hope you got a beverage, some popcorn, a snack, whatever. You don't need it. Get comfy and grab your invisible pearls. Let's go.
It turns out I'm not the only American living in Scotland. This is Nicholas Rossi, aka Nicholas Oliverdian. He was facing charges back in the USA stemming from an RAPE he committed back in 2008. So he decided to fake his own death and flee to Scotland. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but when you travel between countries, generally you need a thing called a passport. And if you fake your death in one country and then travel to another country after that, that country you traveled to tends to have a record that you are in fact alive. So Interpol had been looking for this guy. But old Nicholas, he's smart. He adopted an English accent and the very believable and not at all made up sounding name, Arthur Knight. And then proceeded to do the opposite of laying low, which is frequenting local pubs wearing Hugh Hefner-style silk pajamas and smoking jackets, or wearing 1920s suits and bow ties, and would loudly state, in what I'm sure is a flawless English accent, that he was a visiting professor working at the University of Glasgow. Truly a Jason Bourne level of deep cover. And it was only penetrated when he caught COVID and had to be hospitalized, and the authorities were able to catch up with him. But Nicholas claims he is not Nicholas. He is Arthur and always has been. And when asked, well, why do you have the same tattoos as Nicholas? Someone gave me the same tattoos while I was unconscious. And why do you have the exact same fingerprints as Nicholas? Someone has meddled with my fingerprints to make them match. And I'm sure if they asked him about dental records, he would have said, the better to eat you with, my dear. But he claims to be the victim of an elaborate conspiracy to frame him. And his wife is standing by him. Oh, did I not mention he has a wife? Yeah, he got married here. I don't know what a fake college professor earns, but I'm guessing she pays the bills. And she's standing beside him because she believes him. Or she knows she's sitting on millions for the story rights to this, and it would be dumb to jump ship now, so ride that shit to the end, lady. Anyway, now he's fighting extradition by claiming to be infirmed, wheelchair-bound, and in an oxygen mask. The court's not buying it, so he actually did come up with a clever way of stalling by committing a crime here in the UK that needs to be dealt with before he gets extradited. Which in this case was assaulting a guard at the jail he's being held in. Pretty impressive for a dude in a wheelchair and on oxygen. Also, I need to polish up my CV, because I hear the University of Glasgow might soon have an opening for a new fake professor.
I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly.
This guy is an American fugitive who claims to be a British man named Arthur Knight. Nicholas Rossi is alleged to have faked his own death in 2020 before fleeing to Scotland and taking on the new name Arthur Knight, claiming to be an orphan from Ireland who has never set foot on US soil. An anonymous email sent to US media in 2020 stated that Rossi, who had been facing a number of SA charges, had died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and was buried at sea. As it turns out, Rossi had been living as an eccentrically dressed British professor, claiming that he worked as an academic and could often be overheard ranting about Brexit. One neighbour told The Times that for someone who was on the run, he really liked to draw attention to himself. But in October 2021, Rossi was arrested after being hospitalised with a COVID infection, where medical staff recognised his tattoos. Rossi claims that he was set up, insisting that fingerprints were faked and he was tattooed while unconscious in hospital. All of which leads to this recently aired interview, where this guy tearfully maintains that he is not Nicholas Rossi and is indeed Arthur Knight.
I am not Nicholas Alaverdi.
All while sporting an oxygen mask and an interesting genre of British accent.
I am not Andrea.
Accompanied by his wife, he begged the media for privacy and provided a dramatic demonstration of his inability to walk. But alas, Scottish courts have confirmed that Arthur Knight is Nicholas Rossi, and he now faces extradition to the US in March 2024.
So Nicholas Rossi is at the centre of an international manhunt. US authorities claim he's a fugitive who faked his own death to try and avoid sex charges in the States. It's claimed he tried to set up his own memorial service so that people could mourn his passing. And he went on the run for years until he was eventually tracked down in December of last year at a COVID ward in Glasgow. Well, he's been chopping and changing his name for years, creating aliases along the way. This week, here at court, he said he's Arthur Knight, an Irish orphan who's never set foot in the US. He said he arrived in London as a teenager and met his wife Miranda in 2012. His medical records show he's changed his name 4 times in the last 3 years. Well, the sheriff in this court decided the man here is the same one wanted in the US.
The person appearing before me is Nicholas Rossi, the person whose extradition is requested by the United States.
Nicholas Rossi showed no emotion after concocting a string of stories this week, which were all contradicted by experts in the witness box. He said his body was tattooed while he was unconscious in hospital. He said his fingerprints were taken by an NHS employee at a hospital in Glasgow and then sent to a corrupt official in the US. Each and every story along the way was debunked and dismissed by the sheriff as scandalous and implausible.
There's an update in the tale of Nicholas Rossi. You know, the American conman and rapist who faked his own death, fled to Scotland, and has been lying low using a fake English accent and the name Arthur Knight. Well, in addition to the tattoos and fingerprints matching the guy they're looking for, the police are also in possession of a notebook showing all of the alternate names he considered using before landing on the fake name Arthur Knight. And I'd like to take you through them. Charles King, Robert Hood, Benjamin Bigg, Warwick Castle. What, was Buckingham Palace taken? Richard York. You know, the guy from Bewitched. Adrian Wall. I actually like this one. I'm a little disappointed he didn't choose that. Winston Dickens. First name of Winston Churchill, last name of Charles Dickens. And Nelson Stone, who I'm pretty sure Brian Bosworth played in an action film. Anyway, F this guy. Can't wait to see him on the inside of a prison cell where I'm sure his con man antics will go down really well.
Now his oxygen setup just kept changing. Never have I ever seen someone who requires oxygen just getting a mashup of oxygen setups. It looks like he's using whatever he can get from his local medical supply store or pharmacy. But that's not all. Coming from HeraldExtra.com, Dateline examines tale of Utah fugitive Nicholas Rossi. A fugitive out of Utah County that is being held in jail in Edinburgh, Scotland, was the subject of NBC's Dateline News program Friday in a segment titled Dead Men Talking. Nicholas Rossi, who reportedly goes by several aliases, including Nicholas Alvardian Rossi, Nicholas Edward Rossi, Nick Allen, Nicholas Brown, and Arthur Knight, has long been sought in connection with the Utah County sexual assault case. In televised interviews, alleged victims and investigative officers on both sides of the Atlantic described Rossi as a con artist and accused him of being a rapist and sex abuser who had taken advantage of people at all levels. Whew. It was under a year ago that former Utah County Attorney David Leavitt announced that Rossi had been arrested in Scotland and was awaiting extradition back to the U.S., but finding him was a difficult pursuit. According to the Providence Journal, the man known in Rhode Island as Averdian was a respected child welfare advocate before suddenly telling associates that he had terminal cancer. Of course, he was a child welfare advocate. Nobody checked him out. I mean, I saw other stories where he claimed to have been in foster care and all this other stuff, but the red flags were popping off. Anywho, that was followed soon after by news of his apparent death in 2020, complete with an obituary. Well, depending on the side of TikTok that you're on, we just went through that. Where a woman faked her own death and then just popped out and started doing lives like, oh, I was hacked. Girl, you put out 5 different obituaries that you paid for, but I digress. The man now held in Scotland disputes assertions he is who people claim. I am not Nicholas Averdian, he told Dateline in a shaky voice amid sobs called into question by anchor Andrea Canning. Those were not sobs. That was just... He repeatedly insisted that he is Arthur Knight, an orphan from Ireland who has never been to the U.S., the BBC reported. Fingerprints taken when he was arrested for this matter were confirmed to be Nicholas Rossi, according to the Utah County Attorney's Office press release in July 2022. According to the BBC, Rossi was originally arrested in December 2021 by Scottish police after hospital staff at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital recognized his tattoos based on images that had been circulated by Interpol while he was undergoing treatment for COVID-19. Maybe you shouldn't have been out in all those pubs, my boy. As detailed in Dateline, and the Dateline investigation, Rossi accused the hospital or law enforcement of putting tattoos on him and changing his fingerprints while he was in a comatose state. I have a few tattoos, and I will admit, getting tattoos does calm me down. I do get a little sleepy, but ain't no way Ain't no way when you're not expected to get tattooed, you're not moving around, you're not squirming, you're not. And how would they replace your tattoos? This is not the movie Face Off. I told y'all there was no way to preface this story. Do you see? There's But remember, he said in front of his wife that he couldn't stand, and then he but given the fact that his oxygen setup continuously changes, I understand the theory that the one gentleman in the video gave, stating that maybe the wife is hanging around to be able to sell the story for millions. I think she's in on it. She's got to be in on it because he's pretending to be a professor, but he obviously has no income. He has all of these different oxygen setups. She knows. She knows. She knows. But if it's not Trump, it's DeSantis. So let's get caught up on DeSantis and his latest shenanigans. Because, you know, he left Japan and now he's in Jerusalem. He's everywhere but where he's supposed to be.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis again struggled with a question at a press conference and became visibly agitated, very much so. The not ready for primetime tag is already firmly around his neck, and the clip I'm about to show you won't help. DeSantis was questioned about his time as a JAG officer in 2006 at Guantanamo Bay. While in Israel and giving a press conference, he naturally went off. In the last week, he's been criticised by fellow Republicans over the Disney feud, hammered for his response to the floods in Florida. All of this as he reportedly prepares to launch a campaign for president finally in May at some point.
No, all that's BS. No, totally BS.
Yeah. Say you were present during those meetings. Is that
Who said that?
Detainees have told us that.
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative.
Riddle me this, Batman. When has Ron DeSantis ever cared about the facts? All he does is spin narratives. He's losing popularity in his own state. And he has no popularity or credibility outside of Florida. He even went back to his previous co-workers in Congress and was like, hey, you're going to endorse me, right? They came out and publicly said, hey, had a great meeting with DeSantis, but I'm not backing him. The whole reason that Disney is now using his book and failed book tour against him is because of the narrative he was trying to sell and the narrative he was trying to push forward in order to change legislation. But I guess an dog or else. Now, from one bullshit scenario to the next. Now, I know a lot of people have been going crazy all over social media regarding the soccer star who's going through a divorce and everything is in his mama's name, so the wife can't get anything. Okay, everybody's praising the mama like, oh, good looking out for him. Now, I've had some questions regarding this. Like, is it good to put some assets like in your mother's name and a parent's name outside of that? Because that leaves you even more protected than a prenup that can be contested in certain circumstances. But I'm like, why? Why? Because the age that he is, I have adult children right now. And even now, with all the wisdom I've collected over the years, there are even times that they give me pushback and want to doubt my life experiences. And then they usually come back later like, yeah, mom, okay, you were right. Let's go ahead and get this changed up. But I knew something was up. Yeah, when you have a certain pattern of behavior, it's best to have everything in your mama's name. So you can't be sued in order for it to be snatched. Not sure what I'm talking about? Let me let my mutual tell you what's going on.
So today, a big joke right now is this situation. You know what I mean? Some people being like, he's so smart, his mom's so smart, city boys up, etc., etc., etc. Well, everybody jump on the wife and the whole situation of her one half, etc., etc. I want to know why we're leaving out the part that the reason why his wife is leaving him is because he's being accused of rape. Apparently, the victim just decided that she wanted to report it without even suing him or anything. She just wanted it reported because, you know, it's fucked up. And yeah, this is going down, and his wife is like, I'm not dealing with no rapist. But that's not at the forefront of our conversation right now. Everybody's just talking about how smart his mama was. I mean, two things could be true at once. But I think this is some information that motherfuckers should know before we start applauding motherfuckers, you know?
All I'm going to say is whoever his marketing and PR team is, they're impeccable because they're putting the story out regarding his finances to cover up the fact that he's been reported for rape. And all I got to say is maybe Mr. Understudy Creed 3 should have taken. Never mind. Y'all ain't ready for that conversation. Y'all ain't ready for that conversation. But I know y'all know Tucker Carlson got fired from Fox News. His sycophants are just now finding out because, you know, Fox never tells on Fox. They're slowly finding out through social media that Fox settled with Dominion. So, yeah. And even now, conservatives, top conservatives, are calling for a boycott of Fox. And it's also being noted by some celebrities that he's interviewed that Tucker's online persona doesn't match up to when there's no cameras going, but I could have told you that. As always, make sure you check out the links in the description of this video, and let's get into Tuck emerging.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
I remember the day that the news broke that Tucker Carlson and Fox News parted ways. When we know he was completely blindsided and fired, he was pink slipped expeditiously. I put out a blog and I came onto this podcast and said, either he's going to show up on a streaming service or he's going to really monetize himself and put out a podcast. Now, he laid low for what? couple days. And yesterday, I informed you all that the Murdoch-owned Wall Street Journal came out swinging to make sure he didn't say anything about them. And they let it be known that he was getting too big for his britches over at Fox. Once again, check the links in the description of the video. And now he's coming out with this impeccable PR speech to set you up to continue to take him as the truth and the light, and that he can bring you not stupid debates, but the real nitty gritty of it all. And then ends it with a see you soon. In suit and tie, still looking like an anchor. But let's see how Mommy Issues Tuk Tuk got to where he is now. Buckle up. You're going to enjoy this ride.
He spent most of college drunk, wanted to join the CIA, and is now out of a job. Tucker Swanson McNair Carlson was born in San Francisco in 1969. His mom left Tucker and his family when he was 6, and his dad moved the kids to San Diego. Tucker's dad was a TV reporter who uncoincidentally broke a story in 1976 about a women's tennis champion who was in a men's league just a year before but underwent a sex change. His dad then married a descendant of the Swanson family, which made its fortune selling its TV dinner company to Campbell Soup. All of a sudden, Tucker and his family were rich. He ended up going to boarding school in Rhode Island and then enrolled at Trinity College, where he spent almost his entire experience drunk, in his own words. He also became an active debater and had a banner of an elephant in his room for the Republican Party. Tucker wanted to join the CIA after college but was rejected, and then his dad gave advice that would change his life. He said, become a journalist. They'll let anybody in. Stay tuned for part 2. Tucker proposed to his high school sweetheart, Susan Andrews, 6 months before graduating. They met at their boarding school in Rhode Island, where her dad was the headmaster and also priest. After college, Tucker started off as a fact checker before becoming a well-known political writer. His first big hit came in 1999 when he interviewed then Texas Governor George W. Bush as he was running for president. Tucker quoted Bush mocking someone on death row and also using the F word multiple times. But while Bush hated it, other journalists loved it. Tucker then took a job at New York Magazine, where he covered Pakistan and traveled there a month after 9/11, where they called him our man in Islamabad. Then CNN came knocking. He became co-host on political debate show Crossfire, in which he represented the political right. He left the show in 2004 because he didn't like the partisanship. This is my favorite detail, by the way. Around this time, Tucker competed in Dancing with the Stars, but was the first one eliminated. Stay tuned for part 3. After Tucker appeared on Dancing with the Stars, in which he got the lowest score for sitting in a chair for too long, he joined Fox in 2009. Tucker slowly worked his way up, going from contributor to morning show co-host, and then his big break came in 2016. Tucker was tapped to fill the 7 p.m. slot, and Tucker Carlson Tonight debuted 6 days after Trump's election. And then in 2020, Tucker went off. He soared to #1 in cable news and set U.S. records for ratings. Along with the success came controversy, advertising boycotts, and then earlier this year, the leaks. As part of a defamation lawsuit against Fox News, Tucker's personal texts were released. In one, he said, "I hate Trump passionately," and called him a demonic force. And in another, he called a Fox exec the C word, and also one of Trump's lawyers an effing B word. On top of that, a former staffer also sued him for creating a discriminatory and hostile workplace. She alleges that they hung pictures of Nancy Pelosi in a bathing suit on a wall and debated over which politician they want to sleep with. On Monday, he was fired. Some say it was over the lawsuit, and others say he went rogue and got too big. But what do you think? Post your verdict in the comments.
I told y'all what I think. But before we break for merchandise, coming from NBCnews.com, y'all know Mike Pence had to finally pay the piper and show up to testify regarding the self-coup of Trump, aka the January 6th insurrection. So Pence testifies before a federal grand jury investigating Trump's role in January 6th. Former Vice President Mike Pence appeared Thursday before the federal grand jury convened as part of the special counsel investigation into former President Trump's efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss and remain in power, according to a source familiar with the matter. The testimony is a significant development in the special counsel's probe, as Pence could provide critical insights into Trump's thinking in the days leading up to the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. The former vice president published a memoir and Wall Street Journal opinion article detailing several of his interactions with Trump, but some details were left vague. Special counsel Jack Smith's team is particularly interested in Trump's efforts to try to block the certification of the election, NBC News previously reported. Pence's appearance came amid an increased security presence at the federal courthouse in Washington on Thursday. NBC News spotted multiple black SUVs with tinted windows entering the parking garage in the morning. 2 black SUVs entered the courthouse garage at around 9 a.m., an entrance that would allow witnesses to head up to the grand jury rooms on the 3rd floor without being seen in the public areas of the courthouse. The SUVs left the courthouse about 4:30 p.m. When reporters asked Chief Justice James Boasberg, who oversees grand jury proceedings, what was happening, he demurred. A spokesperson for the special counsel declined to comment. Now, there are a lot of people who are refusing to speak up regarding Trump and any legalities for a multitude of reasons. Even those that have thrown their hat in the ring for the 2024 presidency or are being speculated to do so. They're terrified of Trump, and they know that the GOP is going to gift wrap and hand Trump the nomination because it seems like Trump has dirt on all of them, and most of them in some way, some fashion have assisted him. That's why they're all sweating bullets right now regarding what is going to come out of Fulton County, Georgia in the next couple of months, and what is ultimately going to come out of this DOJ investigation, because it's not just the January 6th, but it also has to do with the classified documents that were retrieved from Mar-a-Lago. But we'll get more into this and other things after the break. Take this time to go get some more snacks. I'll see you in 2 and 2. You know how we do.
U.S. states that didn't make the cut. Number 3, Transylvania. Located in what's now modern-day Kentucky, Transylvania was a failed state during the late 1700s. Famous pioneer Daniel Boone bought a bunch of land in the Appalachian Mountains from the Cherokee Indians. Within that land, Boone established the town of Boonesboro and eventually the potential state of Transylvania. Transylvania even elected a man named Jim Hoff to the Continental Congress, which got to be one of the most awkward interactions as Virginia claimed that land that supposedly this new state of Transylvania is made of. It's needless to say the Continental Congress did not appreciate wannabe states amongst their ranks, and Transylvania was rejected statehood.
Now, let's get on to Meghan Trainor and the fact that her mask is slipping. She's gotten so comfortable that her true colors are not just staying in her living room. Not sure what I'm talking about? If you're a teacher, you might want to come back in like 4 minutes.
Teachers, watch this.
No, but
we're
I mean,
homeschooling our kids.
Same. I think everyone
Fuck
should
that.
like
Everyone on TikTok is. I have a kid in school in America. I have a bulletproof backpack. I was like, fuck all that.
like that, but also
Bullying.
kids can be mean. Teachers, that was my trauma. Teachers,
Fuck
and
teachers,
you know,
dude.
but then also
Damn. I don't expect that much from Trisha Paytas because she's just always living her life in some sort of problematic state. But with Meghan Trainor, that sucked. The story that they're telling right before this is about how when her husband was in school after being in Spy Kids, that the principal made this big deal and caused a lot of trauma for her husband. And I get that there are teachers that cause trauma, and I get that there are awful teachers, but that's not the majority. Those are not the majority of cases for the majority of kids. And we're already in a very anti-teacher place. So the disconnect with reality is just really apparent and sad. You heard this part of the segment and didn't edit it out. I just don't get it. Like, when you have a following that large and you are that much of a celebrity, everything that you say is very important. And right now, teachers are already getting enough shit for shit that they didn't even do. I just feel like this is a really gross miss from Meghan Trainor, which really sucks. There are 2 artists on this app that I really love, and that's Meghan Trainor and Lizzo. Lizzo, please don't say any fucked up shit about teachers. Thank you. And I even get the whole wanting to homeschool. If that's something that you want to do, especially as a celebrity, if that's something that you feel like is best for you and your family, go for it. But why are we just throwing teachers under the bus in a blanket? Like a whole fuck teachers? It was really in poor taste.
that was my trauma. Teachers, and
teachers,
you know,
dude.
but then
And on the brink of Teacher Appreciation Week, let's talk about the Meghan Trainor video that I'm sure by now you have all seen. So she basically gave a blanket statement in which she said, F teachers, dude. All of you, right? So even the ones that put their lives on the line every single day in the classroom, the ones that deal with stressful situations every single day, the ones that don't have enough money to be able to pay off their student loans every single day, right? Now, when you have a following like you do, which is 17 million plus, the words that come out of your mouth are going to be detrimental. I mean, you basically threw our entire profession under the bus. So I saw the follow-up video. Here's what I think about that follow-up video. It's pretty weak. So it's not how you say it, it's what you say. Now you have a team of people that could have edited, unedited. Now I think it has since been taken off TikTok, but it's still up on YouTube and Spotify. Let's do better.
First of all, to have Miss Paytas on your show, huge red flag. Paytas is a culture vulture in the most disrespectful way. She takes zero about other people seriously. No profession is a monolith. I get that. I understand that. I respect that. Meghan Trainor's podcast, as a lot of them, unlike this one, is not live. I am very much so live. I do not go back and delete podcasts. I do not go back and edit podcasts. Sometimes things, I'll get a notification that in certain countries, something that I played or something that I said will be muted in that country. Okay, there's nothing I can do about that. But that is an edited, not live podcast, which means at any moment you could have taken it out. The promo for that podcast included that statement. And it wasn't a teacher that caused your husband trauma. It was a principal, an administrator. And I think even teachers can admit that there are a lot of less than on par administrators. There are a lot of less than on par school boards. But riddle me this. How can everybody say that we are supposed to just automatically have all this respect for cops specifically, because they never bring up firemen or EMTs or paramedics or anything else, because they put their life on the lines? Teachers are now having to put their life on the lines for their students, literally. And they don't get paid administrative leave or grievance leave when their student becomes the aggressor or their student becomes the victim of gun violence. They still have to show up the next day, on top of losing students to abuse, to neglect. But Miss Meghan Trainor just came out with the book. If it's fuck teachers, who's going to teach them how to read those books? Because far too many of parents like you are not involved in your children's education, are not involved in your children's development. You leave the onus onto everyone else, and you will blame and point fingers at the teachers. But before I get my blood to boiling, let's move on to some additional information regarding Miss Presidential Hopeful for I don't even know how many times to this point, Marianne Williamson.
This is a clip of Marianne Williamson talking about Israel, Palestine, and Avatar. I have no words for the clip, so just watch it for yourself.
I was in Israel, and I was talking to some Israeli and Palestinian peacemakers. And I said, I'm telling you the truth, I said, well, you know, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. According to Avatar, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. She's there to protect balance.
Yes.
She doesn't pick a winner. She protects balance. And
Yes.
do you know what the Palestinian and the Israelis in the room, do you know their reaction?
What did they say? They thought about it.
They
That's
nodded.
good.
And I think it was because some of them had seen Avatar.
Yeah.
And that's why I had no words for the clip.
Marianne Williamson? Really? Marianne Williamson? Are you serious right now? Once again, the Democrats slipping into their old ways and getting really comfortable. They feel like with all of the shit that's been going on recently, they've got a few trolleys that they can use against us. And they do. You know, reproductive health care, trans rights, all of that stuff, right? Those are trolleys and scare tactics that Democrats can use to get people to vote for them. So now the Democrats are putting forth these milquetoast neo-lib candidates who they plan on testing the waters with to see how much of normalcy we can get back to. But the thing is, we're not trying to go back to a sense of normalcy. We're trying to push. And with that shit that happened in North Carolina where that woman switched on a dime and turned to the Republicans after she ran as a Democrat and got elected as a Democrat. Yeah, I don't understand why Dems are just sitting here twiddling their fucking thumbs. I don't get it. We need actual radical change here in America, and we needed it. We needed it like 5 years ago. And now I get it. Like, we can't really be too radical and shake the boat. Like, I'm a socialist, but I understand that I can't ask for a socialist candidate right now. I get that. But if you really do need to prop up a milquetoast candidate that you feel like is going to unite everyone, I don't know why the Democrats are not pushing for Gavin frickin' Newsom. Gavin Newsom is going to be their best bet at not rocking the boat enough and alienating whatever Republican or centrist voters that the Democrats are so concerned with reeling in, and he's probably going to be the Dems' best chance at defeating DeSantis and Trump. Just saying. But if they do not stop pushing these boring, not going to get anybody out to the frickin' polls to vote candidates, the Democrats are just going to have another 2016 all over again. Oh my fucking God. I can't believe this shit. Like, maybe we need to start protesting the Democratic Party and telling them that we don't want these boring candidates that aren't going to do anything for us. Or that really don't stand a chance against someone like Trump or DeSantis. I'm telling you right now, someone like Marianne Williamson is going to get utterly slaughtered in any sort of debate with Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. She's gonna get demolished. Also, she's an author. I don't know if you guys have ever like looked into what she's written, but it's all like Christian based. And that's like the main reason why I really do not trust her. Listen, Dems, I don't like you, but I also really don't want a GOP victory in 2024. I swear to God, it's gonna be the end of us. Please, pick up the tab. Something. Marianne Williamson is going to get utterly slaughtered in any...
Marianne Williamson is a fucking right-wing kook. She's not a Democrat. She may pretend like she's one on the internet, like that lady in North Carolina did, and then she got into office. She was like, nah, chill, I'm a Republican. That's her. Have you ever read anything that she's written? Do yourself a favor. It's all Christian-based. Like he said, I can't trust her. Not gonna do it. She has made some really derogatory AIDS comments over the years. That's another hard pass for me. So when everybody in the comments is like, why aren't you jumping on the Marianne Williamson bandwagon? It's because she's an anti-vaccine fucking nut job. Go watch his video. It's really good.
This is why I tell you all to be careful and make sure you research all these candidates, especially as they just pop up, especially repetitive candidates. Because you only get to tell me once that you don't want me in office, that my ideas are either too radical or not radical enough. And over the past couple of months, I keep bringing to you all person after person after person. And I already told you that this was going to happen because of the money that the GOP was putting into school board elections and teeny tiny alderman elections and things like that, that this is what was going to happen. People are going to pretend to be liberal, to be on the left, to be Democratic, to just get into office and flip-flop. But y'all y'all know the Constitution so well, but y'all still letting these people screw you over. Now, before we go any further, we talked about Tuk Tuk and his firing. Here's Joy Reid's take on Don Lemon.
Joy Reid has a theory about why Don Lemon was fired from CNN. It's one I wholeheartedly agree with, and something I've been saying for a while.
I want to go to CNN real quick. Let me play for you a little bit of the interview with a gentleman named Mr. Ramaswamy, who is running for president on the Republican side. This was his exchange with Don Lemon that apparently was a factor in his being let go. Take a listen.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They were not secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not, you are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to happen.
And you know how they got it? They got their Second Amendment rights, and they actually got the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the NRA
did not play a big role.
They trained black Americans how to use firearms.
That's a lie.
Those are absurdities by Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's just be clear. If that is a factor in the firing of Don Lemon, that seems to me to be an indication of something about CNN more than it is about Don Lemon. Is that accurate per your reporting? And is that a sign that CNN is trying to reposition itself perhaps to take Fox's place?
I think the new president of CNN, Chris Licht, made very clear that he wants Republicans to feel more comfortable on CNN. I think staffers at CNN are not sure what that really means. Does that mean they don't have to ask tough questions? That interview with Don Lemon clearly was pretty contentious, and for a morning TV show, they wanted this show to be, your family sitting around the kitchen table at breakfast, and that's obviously a more contentious interview. Doesn't mean what Don Lemon is saying is wrong at all, but I think it's not the vibe they wanted, and maybe the vibe was probably a wrong, maybe that was not the right strategy for this morning show.
But see, this is the challenge, because we were just talking about Fox being complicit in including pushing Russian propaganda to an audience. We're not sure if that's what they want or if that's what they're pushing. But if you then have a station emulating what Fox was and what maybe Fox is trying to extricate itself from being, that doesn't sound like a good thing for our republic.
Well, there's another experiment here. CNN's mantra was always, the news is the star. We don't want personalities. We don't want ego. We don't want emotion. We want the news to lead the show. And that's a very inspiring idea. It's not clear that that's what cable TV audiences want, and especially during the Trump years, CNN became like Fox, not ideologically, but in having big personalities. And if they're trying to draw that back, they're now going back to an older model of cable news where the news is the star. We'll see if people watch that.
And CNN used to host Crossfire, including Tucker Carlson. They wanted the heat until they didn't want it. I think Don Lemon did a fine job in standing up for real facts and history in that, and it's a shame that he is no longer at that network. Thank you, Jeremy Barr, David Frum. Thank you both. Up next.
I'm kind of waiting for them to start pushing Jim Acosta and Anderson Cooper out. We'll see what happens.
This is a prime example of multiple things can be true at once. Let's not forget, CNN was recently bought out by a friend of Trump. So it's been more right-leaning quite a bit. There have been some reporting on some stories where I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the stance you're going to take? But also, Don Lemon has had some mistakes. And some things about Don Lemon have come out that are very disheartening. Now, can he make amends? Can he put in the work and become better? Absolutely. But I think it's a culmination of multiple things. But we cannot excuse or ignore some of the egregious comments that he's made towards women and about women. Get it together, Don. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she just can't shut up. She just can't stop swinging and missing. Here's the latest installment of MTG has her foot for lunch again.
It was shocking to depict someone on a horse with a whip, whipping a human being, and that's funny. That engenders giggles. That's funny. People being whipped. Wow. Wow.
I was laughing about something completely unrelated. And it is extremely poor behavior of people on this committee to continue to attack my character for political points, likely for campaign ads.
Marjorie, that's exactly what you were laughing at, and you're accusing them of what you do. But projection is the name of the game. But that's not all she... Just take a look.
People are not affecting climate change. You're going to tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice? The climate is going to continue to change. And there is no reason to just open up our borders and allow everyone in and continue to funnel over $50 billion or however many billions of dollars or trillions of dollars to foreign countries all over the world simply because they don't like the climate change.
She has a unique ability of taking every talking point, every GOP talking point, and putting it into every argument that she makes. I wonder if she thinks Jurassic Park is a documentary or docuseries. I bet you she thinks Mad Max is a historical... I can't. Now we go from that to, we already know that the quiet part is screaming out loud, but the protect the children crowd don't even like their own children. So stop expecting them to have a monochrome of respect for yours. Take a look.
One of the big issues that we have heard today and we've talked about lately is that without surgery, the risk of suicide goes way up. Well, I am one of those parents who lived with a daughter who was suicidal for 3 years. Someone once asked me, wouldn't I just do anything to help save her? And I really had to think. And the answer was no. I was not going to give in to her emotional manipulation because she was incapable of making those decisions, and I had to make those decisions for her. I was not going to let her tear apart my family, and I was not going to let her tear apart me because I had to be strong for her. I had to have a vision for her life when she had none, was incapable of having none. I was lost. I was scared. I spent hours on the floor in prayer because I didn't know that when I woke up, if my daughter was going to be alive or not.
Understanding the risk, understanding the mental toll, understanding the emotional toll, but victimizing yourself, stating that your daughter couldn't make proper choices for herself, but she was mature enough and cognizant enough and developed enough to emotionally manipulate you and tear apart your family. And your solution was not to take care of your daughter's needs, but to pray. And you admit, as a full-grown adult, you were lost as to what to do, but admitted that you had all of the information and all of the tools to ensure that your daughter would not take her own life. But protect the children, right? Except from crazed evangelicals that don't even follow the tenets of their own religion. And speaking of people just wanting to have control over somebody else's body and not giving a damn about their well-being, let's watch this white, male, crazed evangelical talk about his divorce. You're not going to believe this one.
This video is being made for educational purposes. Having said that, have y'all seen the news about Steven Crowder? Apparently, poor Steven Crowder has been going through a divorce these past couple of years, and he also accused Candace Owens of extortion and said that he might take legal action against anybody who discusses his divorce a bit too far. But that's not really what I want to talk about in this video. I have about a minute clip here to play for y'all, and I want you to listen closely and see if you pick up on what I picked up on.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now. Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period.
Did you catch it?
And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period.
Who would have thought? Steven Crowder doesn't like the fact that his ex-partner, being a woman, had the choice to leave his ass. And I love that he made sure to emphasize that, you know what I mean? In today's America, my beliefs don't matter no more. I didn't want to get a divorce, but she wanted to. I drink my pain away if I could, but Bud Light supports the trans. The first time I had ever seen, heard anything of Steven Crowder, I was dumbfounded, and still to this day, there is never a moment in which I hear him speak in which I don't roll my eyes into the back of my head. This dude is full of bad opinions, and in this video, he basically says straight up that if a couple is married and one of them is unhappy, they should just be stuck in the marriage. You want to talk about an old school train of thought? I mean, my god. Steven Crowder would most definitely thrive back in the 1940s. Call this a hot take, but a child does not need a mom and a dad. What they need is a healthy, stable environment and a parent or parents who love and care for them. How do you guys think Steven Crowder feels about the prospect of the man asking for the divorce as compared to the wife? I think we all know the answer.
After Steven Crowder went on his show and told the world that he was getting a divorce and claimed that there was no abuse from either side and he just picked wrong, his wife decided to push back and released a statement along with a video that's about 3 minutes long that shows him in the most condescending serial killer tone I've ever heard, berating his wife for not performing her wifely duties. Now, the thing that set Steven off was that his wife, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, didn't want to feed their dogs a certain kind of medicine that she thought might be harmful for pregnant women. So instead of just feeding the dogs, Steven sits on his couch, puffing on a cigar, and berates her, basically calling her a failure as a wife. The altercation ended with Steven following his wife in the house and telling her in a threatening tone that he will F her up, his 8-month pregnant wife, which caused her to leave the house. Now that part is at the end, it's not on camera, but he later admitted to doing it. For some reason, I couldn't get the sound to work on TikTok. I don't know if it's because it's a Substack link, but if you go to Yashar Ali's Twitter and just click the link, you can watch the whole video. Crowder's wife's family also issued a statement saying she spent years hiding her husband's emotional abuse from her family and that he lied about the circumstances around their divorce and that he wasn't even present for the birth of their twins. Who would have thought that a guy who spent his entire career preaching family values was actually an abusive asshole who apparently couldn't even be bothered to show up to his own children's birth?
Even though we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop.
Out of respect, you said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay?
You can go to Twitter to see the rest of it. To avoid a CGV on here, I just pulled that part. But this is what we mean when we say when it comes to conservatives and Christian nationalists and evangelicals, the call is coming from inside the house. The call is always coming from inside the house. This is why they keep trying to look for traditional wives. And by traditional, they mean somebody who's going to go by the rules of when women couldn't have bank accounts, women couldn't put a mortgage in their name, women couldn't have credit cards in their names, women couldn't do a lot of things. And this is why Black, brown, indigenous women of color look at white women like, why do you keep protecting them? Why do you keep giving them excuses? Why do you keep voting for them when they treat you like shit? See, this is why part of the reason why we have so many Karens in the wild, because the only power they have over their lives is exerting power over the rest of us. But as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode or found anything informative, please share. And as always, make sure you check out the links in the description of the video. And I'm going to leave you with something positive, as I always try to do. Until tomorrow for Freeform Fridays, where we try to lighten it up a little bit. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till tomorrow, y'all.